Okay.
Okay, welcome to Conversations About Well-Being. I'm Rabbi Mark Spiro, speaking to you live from sunny Seattle. I don't get to say that all the time, so it's actually a pleasure to be able to talk about sunshine here. And we have a little bit of a change of formats. Instead of Rabbi Henry Harris, my good friend and colleague, who is busy at a conference, I believe, we have a special guest on our conversation today, who's somebody who I think I did meet you when I was in New York. I know that we met at the conference, but
Yeah.
I don't think we had a lot of time to speak. So great, so we have an opportunity now to have a conversation about well-being. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you.
And so, Melissa, I understand that you've been doing some work with Innate Health. I noticed your book when I was out there. I didn't get a chance to look at it, but I noticed it was there. And so, how long have you been working with the principles of Innate Health to help people and help yourself?
So I started over 7 years ago, and I've been teaching for a little bit over 5 years. And yeah, and I kind of started teaching almost against my will.
Yeah.
I had a friend that was going through a lot of hard stuff, and the truth is, physically, there was nothing that you could do for her because nothing was working out. Everything was horrible. And I said to her, I can't help you in any other way except to just teach you these principles because there's nothing else to do. Like, really, it was the nightmare. And I said to her, and she didn't want to, obviously, and I was like, you know, you just don't have a choice. It's the only way I can at all help you.
Oh, so it sounds like, I'm not sure who forced who.
I forced her. I really forced her. And I started teaching her, and within a couple of weeks, she had like an amazing insight, and you just never saw someone have such a horrible life and be so happy.
Wow.
And she really had a horrible life. Like, we're not, it's not an exaggeration. And we used to have to pretend that she was miserable so that people outside wouldn't want to commit her to the insane asylum. Seriously. Wow. We used to just have each other to laugh with. And she used to, and I'd hear her on the phone with like a sad voice. I was like, what are you doing? She's like, if I laugh with these people right now, they're not gonna get it. And I'm like, okay, so it's a good thing we have each other. I worked with her for a long time, but it really only took a couple of weeks for that first insight. And it was really so easy since then to just, you know, with other being that she got, we were able to come back and talk again and see how it's not the circumstance and find her wisdom. And she was able to turn certain things around that she wouldn't have been able to see because she would have been so caught up in her thinking and all the pain and all the helpless.
So let me slow you down. Let me slow you down a moment then, and let's go back, because it sounds to me like that is a great segue into our conversation, and nothing like a real life experience to talk about. So you said something which was striking to me, which is that this person, in your estimation, really has some serious challenges. This isn't just, you know, lightweight stuff. This is, you know, stuff that most of us would probably agree, wow, that's not easy stuff to go through. And I think for all of us in our own lives, we tend to feel that way about our own lives. You know, we've got stuff going on in our own lives that we feel is not easy stuff to deal with, and oftentimes feel like it's really why we, you know, wake up in the morning and we're not happy, and we feel frustrated and angry and impatient and all the other types of emotions that we might not really enjoy, but we're kind of feeling like, wow, you know, I have to deal with all this stuff because there's these problems in my life that won't just go away because I want them to go away with it. You're saying that you were able to help. Your picture just disappeared. You may want to come back online there, picture-wise.
Yeah, I found you. Yeah.
So you said that, don't go anywhere yet. You said that that you were able to help her, and I'm just curious, what would you say? What did you say that enabled her to laugh about her problems?
So it really was nothing I said because I wasn't even a teacher.
Okay.
I simply told her it's thoughts. I simply spoke to her about the principles. I simply, sat with her from a quiet place. And I think this is what the key was, from a place of knowing that it wasn't her circumstances. And I think I'm the only person on the planet in her life, maybe not on the planet because like the innate health world knew that, but I knew that it wasn't her circumstance. And she had to have sensed that I knew that. But from a real place, not from, you know what I mean? Like not from thought, but from an inner knowledge and essence of this is not the circumstance, even though it's impossible that it's not the circumstance. Like, and I really feel like, and I think that's why, anyone's successful with clients, because you really have to see that for yourself, and then you can impart it to someone else, because someone sees that in you. They're like, what are you seeing here? Like she used to say to me all the time, like, what are you seeing? Because this is not logical.
Tell me, okay, so good. So tell me, let me, just for your own edification, I'm not sure who listens to us, hopefully somebody, but they may not know what the principles are. Our crowd could be very varied. So let's take it a notch back and like you said, she was surprised to hear you suggest that what she's going through, the very real challenges that she was dealing with, were actually not why she was suffering the way she was suffering. And that was surprising to her. And I'm sure that's surprising to some of the folks that are listening to us. So why is that so? Why would you tell somebody that, God forbid somebody dies, they have major financial issues, they have major health issues, they may have major employment issues, they may have major issues with their home, with their family. I mean, there's no shortage of places in our life for problems to arise and challenges to arise. So why would you tell somebody that it's not the problems?
So you don't start like that.
I understand. Stylistically.
Right. So what I do, and what I've seen, is that when you could start showing people how they could be in the same exact circumstance, because if someone's having financial issues, it doesn't last an hour. It lasts weeks, months, sometimes years. So when you can show them and you ask them questions like, have you been miserable for 24 hours every single day? Or has it been times when you've laughed? Oh, well, yeah, there's been times when I've laughed. Well, how'd you do that? How's it even possible? Because if the circumstance didn't change and that circumstance dictates miserableness, how can you physically laugh? Like it wouldn't be a possibility. And it gets them thinking, right? It gets them thinking. They're like, well, yeah, I don't know how I laughed because something was funny. Oh, so in that moment, you weren't thinking about your financial issues. Would that be possible? And you really have to start that conversation because people need to see. So can you still hear me even though we lost video?
Yeah, I'm wondering why we keep losing your video. It's not quite.
I don't know. It's so weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I see myself on the screen, but I can't. You kind of get off the screen. I think we're both. I don't know.
Well, we won't worry about it. Que sera, sera.
Right. Okay, so exactly. So when you start just showing people like from a very neutral place, you could pick the rain. You could pick a bad hair day. Really, you can pick anything. And don't start so deep with them. But the second they start seeing that it's even a possibility, that opens the door.
Okay.
Because if somebody see it as a possibility, they're not going to even give it any attention. If a thought comes in their head and they don't see that as a possibility, it's just out the door, this isn't real. But the second you start showing them there's a possibility, it could be real. When that thought comes in their head, wait a second, maybe it's not maybe I'm not seeing the picture as clearly as I think. They're going to let that thought stick around for a few more minutes and at least see what it has to say. Where before they wouldn't let it stick around. Right? And that's where people say to me, how do you get rid of thought? It's not that you get rid of thought, it's that when you don't believe the thought, it really goes away, And if you really do believe it, it stays. Whether it's true or false is really irrelevant. And it's just a matter of, we see what we believe based on what's stuck in our head.
So you said, So you said, Melissa, whether it's true or false doesn't really matter. Tell me more about that, because I think that, what bothers us a lot about our, okay, so I think that most people I think can acknowledge that thinking plays a role in the way they experience things, because I think most people realize that different people handle things differently. One person handles financial stress differently than another person. And it's not usually hard for someone to see that. But in the end of the day, I think they still feel like they see something that's really a problem. And what do you mean if it's true, it doesn't matter? I mean, I really have a problem here, and I think it is true. And so don't people who have true problems worry a lot? I mean, or at least, feel a lot of concern and maybe some anxiety and fear. Isn't that pretty natural for people who go through problems? So when you say it doesn't matter whether it's true or not, tell me more about what you mean.
Okay, so first I want to clarify, there is truth. Okay, there is really a financial problem.
Wow.
We're not denying that. Okay, and a lot of people hear that we're saying there isn't a financial problem. There wasn't, God forbid, a death in the family. We're not saying that. Okay, there is a real problem. It exists. It's a reality, and it's a truth. Okay, my car got repossessed. I can't pay the rent. I'm homeless. So these are truth. This is a truth. Okay, so we don't want to say that real things aren't happening in the world, because that isn't true. Here's what we're talking about. Okay, we're talking about our interpretation, our reaction, our experience of that truth. Okay, so that's where we can see varying experiences. Okay, and by the way, from the same person, right? The same person could experience the child spilling, the milk within 5 minutes in 10 different ways, right? They could first go, oh my God, why don't you be careful? And then a minute later, like, okay, it was an accident, like, relax, right? And then a minute later, we got to clean up. So what do you mean? The kid spilled the milk. Why didn't your first reaction stick? You were yelling. Like, so the milk was spilled. But what we want to see is that's the part when we say it's irrelevant. It's not that it's not real. But that's not what's causing the emotion. Okay? The emotion is caused by the I like to say interpretation, because I think people understand that more than thinking. I know people really ask me so many times, what do you mean by thinking?
Yeah.
So with interpretation of an event, you're going to feel that interpretation. So which is true? That you should be mad that the kid spilled the milk? That you should say, poor thing, it was an accident? Which is true? So the answer is none or all, right? Whatever.
What do you mean by that? I guess that's what I'm asking you. So wouldn't there be a better choice in there, and a not such better choice? I mean, most of us would say, having more patience with our children and accepting that they spill milk is probably a better option than getting angry at them for spilling milk. So are you saying something different? I'm not clear on that.
So I'm saying this. Let's say the kids are running around like lunatics, and for 10 minutes you've been asking and talking and telling them they need to stop because this is going to be an accident and blah, 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 blah. And they refuse to listen, and boom, milk spills. Now, I don't know if the appropriate reaction is to go and have a tantrum, but I don't know if the appropriate reaction is, oh, honey, see? Like, right? It might be more of a stern, like, this is what I've been telling you. I asked you to stop because their accidents could happen. Okay? So now if the kid is sitting by, nicely doing his homework on the table, and he by accident, swings his arm and the milk spills, then the first reaction that I just said of wouldn't apply, right? It would be like, oh, you're okay. Like, of course that was an accident. Don't get nervous. Don't worry, right? That would be more appropriate. But let's say a person is very prone, is in a habit of right away, like they have a lot of problems with mess and spills, okay? That person might, depending on their habit of reaction, no matter what the circumstance was, they're already screaming, right? Or or they're very quiet, right? And they never ever, like, even when they need to be firm, they don't know how, because their habit of thought is always very, so they're not teaching the kid in the first instance. And in the second instance, okay, great. I always say I don't like rules. I want to, when we're in the moment, if we're in the moment in noticing and being aware of our thinking, then the principle of mind will feed us the reaction that is appropriate.
Okay.
In that moment.
So what you said, so just to make sure I'm clear, I think I understand better. When you said it's not an issue of right or wrong, what you mean to say is you're not there to tell people what the right reaction or the wrong reaction is, because that could vary greatly depending on the person, the situation, and that's not your objective. That's not your focus. What your focus is to help people find their own answer, and that's going to come from themselves, obviously, and from them seeing the role of thought that it's playing in their experience. Is that what you're saying? That the role of thinking is what they really need to start to see?
I would say in awareness. I think in awareness, and first, that you are thinking, right? That you are thinking, like that there is thought in your head. And then, to kind of wait a minute, which takes practice. I can't say that the second I learned innate health, all of a sudden I was like, right now, I definitely have a healthier way of, kind of, I remember telling my teacher for once, like way in the beginning, my thoughts are kind of flowing in front of my eyes, and I feel like I can pick. Now, I don't have that really anymore, but it was beautiful. It was really nice at the time. And, and it's funny, people will tell me that now that I'm teaching, that they kind of feel more stepped back from the thinking, where it's not a reflex anymore, right? We don't want to, reflex is good in the doctor's office when he wants to, they want to. We need to reflex that. We don't need to reflex and reaction. Reflex and reaction are not a match.
Yeah.
Right? We want to be conscious in the moment and make a conscious decision. What's the appropriate reaction? And I think that in innate health, what it did for me was allow me to do that, to step back and not think that my reflex answer was the right one, because I thought it was. I thought that's the thought that came in my head. I'm a smart person. I'm a good person. I want to raise my kids right. I want to be a good wife. So of course the answer that comes in my head is the right one. Right. Or be a good person, and I'm going to squash what I know is right, and I'm going to be the martyr, right? I'm going to listen into my husband even though he's 100% wrong. And that doesn't work either. But that's like, wait a second. Like, maybe it's just a thought that my way is right. And maybe it's just a thought that his way is right.
Right.
That left for a middle.
Right. So
it doesn't leave for a middle otherwise.
So, and so I heard you say something interesting that it almost feels like more of a choice now that you can kind of, I as you probably know, I've been involved with innate health teaching and for myself for we're probably coming close to a decade now, and one of the things that what I've found is the distance, and you described so nicely the distance between kind of yourself and what you're going through in the moment. That it's not just sort of reflected. What's the reflex as you use it? You're not just in it right there, and that I found for sure. Now you mentioned that it's almost like you can choose, because I don't know, for me, sometimes I really don't have that option of choosing. I'm lost in my stuff, but I know that I'm lost in my stuff is the best I can do, and I really don't sometimes have the ability to choose to get out of my stuff. Like, I can be obsessed sometimes, even knowing the principles. I can get occasionally, not as much as I used to, for sure, but it can happen if something's grabby enough, sticky enough in my life. So are you saying different? I wasn't sure if you have a different experience. Yeah. Oh, okay.
No, in fact, I would say that when I get lost in my stuff, there are times that I don't see it, and therefore I don't have peace at all. except what I do find for myself is that I can actually maybe not act on it, although I can't say that 100%.
Right.
I definitely say I'm better, but I can't always choose to get out of it. But I can when I'm gifted with the awareness, and I do feel that awareness is a gift. It's an insight, it's a gift. It's not something that I can take. I can't say, oh, I'm gonna be aware now that I'm in thought. It has to come to me, right? And so that I'm very appreciative when I feel like I notice, even if I'm stuck in it. Right? But when I'm stuck in it, there is sometimes there's a choice to at least not act from it, right? To at least be conscious. You know what? I'll tell you just a funny story. And I think it really was a big thing for me when I noticed it. So my daughter was in the hospital last summer. And she was having a little bit of issues with asthma. Baruch Hashem, now she's fine. And I remember I came home and I needed to just pack up a few things because I think she went on Shabbat. I don't remember exactly. And the thought pops into my head that my other daughter has no clothes. She needs to get clothes. She doesn't have anything to wear. And really, I'm such a horrible mother that I didn't take her shopping. This is what went through my mind. And I'm starting to get into that. And I'm thinking, okay, you know what? The first one's out of the hospital. I'm going to take her shopping. I'm going to do whatever I thought. And within 5 minutes, it occurred to me that I am very scared. And I am very stressed.
Right.
And maybe whatever I was just thinking about shopping might not be accurate. Why don't I just go check the daughter's closet and make sure she has no clothes? Okay, the old me would not have checked. I really wouldn't have. I went in, she has a full wardrobe. She has plenty of clothes. Like, it was completely not true. And I realized it was completely not true. And I realized for me how much shopping I haven't done since I learned the principles.
So the conclusion we can draw from this is your husband must be a huge fan of the principles.
Wait, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Did you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
I said the conclusion that we can draw from all this is that your husband must be a huge fan of the principles.
Yeah. I don't know if he realizes it, but I realized it.
You should let him know.
No habit of thought that I would get scared, get nervous, and then want to distract myself. But I didn't see that as distracting myself. And my mind would literally make something up that wasn't true. You know?
I like that
it was
story.
so fun to see that. Yeah, it was so fun for me to see that. And since I saw that last summer, I'm even more conscious of, believe it or not, my feeling state more than my thinking as much, because I feel like when I get an urge to go buy something or go or be like, oh my God, my life has to get better, this circumstance has to change, I really feel like when I'm in a fear or an anxiety state, those thoughts are very, very prevalent for me.
Right. So you're
distract me from the feeling in my body. And I found that it's better to feel, I think Michael Neal said it. He said, it's just easier to feel the feeling in your body and let it pass than to distract yourself, because you end up doing crazy things. And either way, the feeling has to come through. So you could, go spend $1 million and still the feeling's going to come through. You could just let it through.
Yeah.
And it's really true, because eventually it has to pass. It's gonna get in there.
Yeah, and knowing that that what you're experiencing is thought that you're bringing to life in the moment is a lot less scary than real problems out there in the world. And so I find that the principles are really helpful, helping me to sit in feelings, because they're just feelings. Feelings in and of themselves, they're just a product of the thinking I do that I am so wonderful at bringing to life. That's really, that's a whole different ball of wax than dealing with a world full of very real problems that are terrifying half the time, and oftentimes we have no solution for them anyway. So I like what you said very much, and I think what you're saying overall is what you illustrated so nicely is, it's not that there isn't a real reality out there. It's just that reality can look so unbelievably different depending upon the moment and the feeling that we're in. And it's almost like we live in a house of mirrors, these crazy mirrors that just distort things and make them huge. And it's like, you almost have to know when you're, it's the feeling tells you when you're looking kind of in a normal mirror, or when you're perhaps really just seeing things in a very, very stretched out and, you know, completely inaccurate way sometimes, or somewhat inaccurate. So I like that story a lot. So, I mean, this is a huge topic for people, and I know we only have a moment to touch on it, and we're pretty much done with our moment. But
okay, I wanted to add one thing.
Yeah, why don't you close us out with a thought, and then we'll say goodbye for today. I'm listening.
Okay. So what I find that for me that story taught me was the old me would have been more afraid to even, we have this thinking that we're supposed to be strong, we're not supposed to be scared, we're supposed to have faith, right? And the old me wouldn't have even been able to, I wouldn't have even been physically or mentally able to even accept the fact that I was scared and tired and overwhelmed. I wouldn't have even been able, I would have just been like, oh no, I would have tossed it right out.
Right.
And what was nice and easy was that you could at least admit it.
Yes.
We're not superheroes, we're human beings, we're not God, we have emotion, and these emotions were put in us for a reason, and they're real.
Yeah.
They feel it. We don't, just getting comfortable for so many people, just getting comfortable with the fact that you're not going to be perfect and you're not going to handle every hard situation. And yes, hard situation. It could be a thought, but
yes.
A child in ICU is not an easy place.
Right.
So I don't have to experience it with tears and crying and falling apart, but I can at least say that this is a scary moment and do what I got to do anyway.
Yeah.
Acknowledge it, accept it, and move on.
Yeah.
The other way, like we said before, you're so busy fighting the feeling that you didn't take care of business.
Right. You actually,
who knows what you're doing at the hospital.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a nice way to end off our conversation, because what you're really saying, yes, being able to accept however I'm feeling is a wonderful thing, and very, very, I think, healthy and productive, and allows you to sort of just embrace it and let it pass, as you said so nicely before. But even more fundamentally is just realizing that what I'm experiencing in the moment is telling me a lot more about myself than about the world. Is I think really what the essence of the conversation has been, and it's something that I hope people listening will really take to heart, because it's a sea change in the way we see things. Excuse the pun, no pun intended. But it is sort of a sea change in terms of where we're looking in life, and that can make huge differences in overall in the nature of how we experience things. So I want to thank you for joining us all the way from New York, and we're gonna, I'm gonna stop the recording now, and thank you for joining us, and we will look forward to seeing people next week for the next conversation.